Chapter 1. On the night Adrian was named Architect of the Year, I wasn't in the ballroom wearing silk. I was on my knees, in the hallway, clutching a mouthful of pins, frantically hemming the dress of our 16-year-old daughter, Lily. "Stand still, honey," I mumbled through the pins. "If you fidget, the hem will be crooked." "It's already crooked, Mom," Lily sighed, scrolling through her phone without looking down at me. "Serena's dress is custom made. She sent me a picture. It's gold. She looks like a literal trophy." Serena, the head designer at Adrian's firm, the woman who sat in the glass office I had designed 10 years ago, taking credit for the concepts I sketched on napkins at the dinner table. "Well," I said, finally pushing myself up, my knees cracking in the silence of the hallway. "You look beautiful, Lily. Blue is your color." "It's navy, Mom. It's boring." She spun away from me, rushing toward the stairs as she heard the front door open. "Dad, is the limo here?" Adrian walked in, adjusting his cufflinks. He looked every bit the genius the magazines claimed he was. Sharp jawline, perfectly tailored tuxedo, eyes that looked right through me to check his reflection in the mirror behind my head. "Have you ironed my handkerchief?" he asked, not saying hello. "It's in your left pocket. I also put the breath mints in the right one, and I emailed your acceptance speech to your phone just in case you lose the index cards." He didn't thank me. He never did. In his mind, this was just the machinery of his life, working as intended. He was the architect. I was just the maintenance staff. "We're leaving," Adrian announced, checking his watch. "Don't wait up. The after-party is going to run late." "Happy anniversary, Adrian," I whispered. He paused, his hand on the doorknob. For a second, I saw a flicker of confusion in his eyes. Today was our 15th anniversary. But just like the husband who prioritized his childhood sweetheart's birthday over his wife's, Adrian had simply overwritten our milestone with his own glory. "Right," he said, patting his pocket. "We'll celebrate when I get back. Assuming you don't fall asleep on the couch again. You always look so tired lately, Clara. It's depressing." He reached into his jacket pocket, not to pull out a gift for me, but to check for something else. A small black velvet box. My heart gave a foolish, hopeful jump. He remembered. "What's that?" I asked, stepping forward. He flinched, quickly shoving it back deeper into the pocket. "Nothing, just a commemorative pin for the senior staff." But I had seen the tag on the box. It was from Cartier. They didn't make corporate pins. And just yesterday, I had seen a text notification on his phone that he quickly swiped away, a message from Serena with a heart emoji. "Let's go, Dad! Serena is waiting in the car," Lily yelled from the driveway. "Coming!" Adrian's face lit up, a warm, genuine smile that he hadn't directed at me in years. It was the same look of affection the unfaithful husband gave his mistress while his family watched. "You're not coming?" Lily asked from the doorway, looking at my gray sweater and leggings with open disdain. "No," I said, my voice steady. "I have a headache." "Figures," she scoffed. "You're always sick." The door slammed shut. The silence that followed was heavy, swallowing the house whole. I went to the kitchen. On the counter sat the anniversary dinner I had spent 4 hours preparing. Roast beef, glazed carrots, and a chocolate tart. It was stone cold. I sat down at the head of the table, alone. I took a bite of the cold beef. It tasted like ash. Buzz. My phone lit up. A notification from Instagram. It was a post from Serena. The photo showed the three of them in the back of the limo. Adrian was holding a glass of champagne, laughing with his head thrown back. Lily was leaning on Serena's shoulder, beaming. Serena held up her wrist, showing off a dazzling diamond bracelet, the one from the velvet box. The caption read, "My team, my family, my muse. Hashtag Architect of the Year." I stared at the screen. My daughter looked happier with her than she ever did with me. My husband looked like a man in love. I realized I was looking at a perfect family portrait that simply didn't include me. Then, the pain hit. It wasn't the emotional dull ache I was used to. This was physical. A sharp, blinding thunderclap inside my skull, right behind my eyes. I gasped, dropping my fork. The room tilted violently. My vision blurred at the edges, turning into static. The aneurysm. The doctor had warned me about the stress, the blood pressure. She had said, "You are a ticking bomb, Clara." I fumbled for my phone with numb fingers. I dialed Adrian. It rang once, twice, sent to voicemail. I dialed again. This time, he picked up. "Clara, for God's sake," he hissed, the background noise of jazz music and laughter loud in my ear. "I am about to go on stage. What is it?" "Adrian," I slurred, the left side of my face feeling heavy, sliding downward. "Help! Hospital! My head!" "Oh, stop it," he snapped. His voice was laced with that familiar impatience, the same tone used by a husband who thinks his wife is just seeking attention. "Lily told me you were pouting about the gala. Now you're faking a medical emergency because I bought Serena a bracelet? You are pathetic." "Adrian, please," I whispered, sliding off the chair onto the cold kitchen tiles. "Don't call me again tonight. Don't ruin my night." The line went dead. I lay on the floor, the cold seeping into my cheek. The phone slipped from my hand. The pain was excruciating, but strangely, as the darkness began to close in around my vision, I felt a sense of calm. I looked at the divorce papers I had hidden in the pantry drawer weeks ago, the ones I had been too scared to sign. If I die tonight, I thought, my consciousness fading, he will have to iron his own shirts for the funeral. And for the first time in 10 years, I didn't care if the hem was crooked. The last thing I remember was the taste of floor wax and the vibration of the refrigerator against my cheek. Then chaos. Blue lights strobing against the kitchen cabinets. The crackle of a radio. Heavy boots thudding on the tile. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" A paramedic hovered over me, his face blurry. "We need an emergency contact. Is there a husband? A child?" I tried to speak, but my tongue felt like a block of lead. I managed to unlock my phone with a trembling thumb and pushed it toward him. "Husband. Adrian." I watched through half-closed lids as the paramedic dialed. He waited. He frowned. He dialed again. "It's going to voicemail," the paramedic said to his partner. "Try the daughter." He dialed Lily. "Declined," he muttered. She sent it straight to voicemail. A tear leaked out of my eye. hot and humiliating. It wasn't the pain in my head that made me cry. It was the realization that I was dying on a cold floor, surrounded by strangers, while my family was undoubtedly raising a toast to success. "We have to move," the partner said. "Her pressure is spiking. We can't wait." They lifted me onto the stretcher. As they wheeled me out, I caught a glimpse of the family calendar hanging by the door. I had color-coded it just yesterday. Adrian, gala. Lily, dress fitting. Clara, dentist. I had canceled the dentist appointment to finish Lily's hem. Waking up was not like in the movies. There was no soft light, no hand holding mine. There was just the rhythmic, indifferent beeping of a monitor and the smell of antiseptic. My head felt like it had been split open and stitched back together, which I would soon learn was exactly what had happened. "Oh, you're awake!" A nurse bustled in, checking my IV bag. She looked tired. "You gave us quite a scare, Mrs. Hawthorne. Ruptured aneurysm. You're lucky the neighbors saw the ambulance lights and came over to give us your medical history, or the anesthesia might have reacted badly." My neighbor? My voice was a dry croak. "Mrs. Higgins?" "Yes, sweet lady. She stayed in the waiting room until surgery started." Did your husband get the messages? We left 3. The silence that stretched between us was thick and suffocating. The nurse knew. I knew. "He's busy," I said. The lie tasted bile bitter. "He's an important man." "Right," she said, her tone softening into that terrible, heavy pity. "Well, you rest. You need to keep your stress levels down. Absolutely no stress." She left the room, leaving the door slightly ajar. I stared at the ceiling tiles. I counted them. 12 across, 14 down. Structural grids. A foundation. I reached for my phone on the bedside table. It was cracked. I must have dropped it when I fell, but it still worked. It was 3 a.m. There were no missed calls, no texts asking where I was. I opened Instagram. The first thing that popped up was a video on Serena's story posted 2 hours ago. The camera panned around a dimly lit exclusive club. Music was thumping. The camera landed on Adrian. His tie was undone, his face flushed with alcohol and adrenaline. He was holding court, surrounded by admirers. "To the vision!" he shouted over the music, raising his glass. "To the building the future!" The camera swiveled to Lily. She was laughing, holding a non-alcoholic cocktail, looking grown up and beautiful. Serena's arm was draped possessively around her shoulders. "And to the team that makes it happen," Serena yelled, leaning in to kiss Adrian on the cheek. Then the camera shook as Serena laughed. "Oh, Adrian, turn off your phone. It's been buzzing all night. Who is blowing you up?" In the video, Adrian rolled his eyes. He pulled his phone out of his pocket, the phone that had been ringing with calls from the hospital, and held it up to the camera. "Just the domestic disturbance," he slurred, winking. "She's probably mad I forgot to take out the trash." He held his finger over the screen and dramatically pressed the power off button. "Problem solved," he cheered. The video ended. I lay there in the hospital bed, the phone trembling in my hand. The domestic disturbance. That's what I was. Not the wife of 15 years, not the mother of his child, not the architect who had secretly fixed every structural flaw in his award-winning designs for the last decade. I was a noise, a nuisance, a background static that he could simply turn off. I waited for the sob to rack my chest.
I waited for the heartbreak that usually sent me spiraling, the desperation to fix it, to apologize, to be better so they would love me. But my chest remained still. The monitor didn't spike. My heart rate stayed steady, 70 beats per minute. It was a terrifying sensation, the emptiness where my love used to be. It was as if the surgeon hadn't just clipped the aneurysm, they had cut out the part of me that gave a damn. I sat up. The room spun, pain lancing through my skull, but I gripped my teeth and swung my legs over the side of the bed. "Mrs. Hawthorne." The nurse appeared in the doorway, dropping a clipboard. "What are you doing? You just had brain surgery." "I'm leaving," I said. My voice was weak, but steady. "You can't. You need observation for at least 48 hours. If you leave, you could die." I stood up, gripping the IV pole for support. I looked at her, and she must have seen something in my eyes, something cold and dead and resolute, because she stopped moving toward me. If I stay here waiting for them, I'm already dead. "I can't stop you, but you have to sign an AMA form, against medical advice." "Bring it." I signed the papers with a shaky hand. I called a taxi. I walked out of the hospital wearing the same clothes I had collapsed in, leggings and a gray sweater, now stained with a drop of blood on the collar. The outside air was freezing. It bit at my exposed skin. I didn't go to my parents' house. I didn't go to a hotel. I told the driver to take me home. Not to sleep, not to argue. I was going home to collect my things, and unlike the times before when I threatened to leave, hoping they would stop me, this time I prayed they wouldn't be there. Because if I saw Adrian now, I wouldn't scream at him. I wouldn't cry. I would look right through him, just like he had looked through me in the mirror. I was the architect, and I had finally realized that the house I built was condemned. It was time to demolish it.
The taxi pulled up to the curb. My house, my prison. It was 4 a.m. The streetlights cast long, cold shadows across the driveway. Adrian's German sedan was parked crookedly in the garage, a sign he'd gotten home drunk and arrogant. I paid the driver, feeling the unfamiliar, comforting weight of the emergency cash I had squirreled away for months. My money, not his allowance. I let myself in with my own key. The house was silent, save for the hum of the refrigerator. I stood in the foyer, catching my breath. My head throbbed, a dull warning, but my mind was laser-focused, quiet, fast, clean. I bypassed the bedroom. I didn't want to see Adrian, or more accurately, I didn't want him to see me. My first stop was my home office, the small, windowless room in the basement that Adrian called my hobby corner. He needed the upstairs study for his important meetings. I found what I needed in the locked fireproof box beneath my desk. Not jewelry, not cash. The sketchbooks. They were meticulously dated and labeled. Sketchbook 1, the Atrium Towers Competition Entry, 2012. Adrian had signed his name on the final plans. I had drawn every structural truss and designed the airflow system that had saved the firm millions. Sketchbook 4, the Golden Compass Award design. The glass tower Adrian had just won the prize for. I had the original watercolor rendering signed C. Vance. It was indisputable proof. I packed them all into a sturdy, waterproof messenger bag, along with my old architecture portfolio and my college diploma. This wasn't just my past, it was my leverage. This was the proof that he hadn't married a housewife, he had married his ghost. Next, I went to the master bathroom. I grabbed my toothbrush, a single bottle of medication, and the small tin box containing 24 of my grandmother's buttons. That was all I would take from that room. No clothes, no jewelry, nothing that tied me to our shared life.
The buttons represented the quiet resilience of women in my family. Finally, I went to the kitchen where I had made 15 years of birthday breakfasts and anniversary dinners that were never eaten. I pulled out the drawer beneath the coffee machine. Inside, tucked beneath the rarely used travel mugs, was the signed divorce document dated 2 months ago. It had been my security blanket, a statement of intent I was too afraid to act on. I pulled out a blue fountain pen and wrote a final message on the back of the envelope, keeping it brief, devoid of emotion. I mirrored the cold finality of the wife who simply sent the papers. Adrian, the papers are signed. I have taken half the liquid assets, which is legally mine. I'll send my lawyer's contact when I have one. Do not call. Do not look for me. Clara. I placed the envelope squarely on the granite countertop, right next to the dirty plate Adrian had left the night before. I took one last slow look at the room, the professional-grade appliances I'd spent my own earnings on, the expensive tile floor where I had nearly died alone. I didn't feel rage. I felt the profound, cleansing indifference I had felt at the hospital. Relief. I picked up my phone, bought a one-way ticket on the earliest train heading south to the coast, and called a second cab. As I slipped out the front door, I pulled out my phone and did one last thing. I blocked Adrian's number, then Lily's, then Serena's. It was not a threat or an ultimatum. It was a structural modification. I was removing the load-bearing walls of my own misery. I stood on the curb, the messenger bag heavy with my life's work, waiting for the cab. The wind was cold, but for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. I wasn't running from them. I was running to myself.
Chapter 4. The sun was just beginning to streak pink and gold over the eastern suburbs as my train pulled out of the station. I watched the sprawling, familiar cityscape recede, the city Adrian had built his reputation in, the city I had secretly designed. I pulled out my phone and texted my old mentor, Evelyn Vance. Evelyn was a titan in the industry and the only person I trusted. Evelyn, I'm back. I need a place to disappear and I need work. I'm signing off this number soon. I'm getting off in Crestview. Please, tell no one. Her reply was immediate. Clara, it's about time. The guest house is waiting, and I have a project for you that will knock the starch out of your old man's shirts. A faint smile touched my lips. I deleted the message thread and put my phone on airplane mode. I leaned my head against the cool window glass and closed my eyes. The rhythmic click-clack of the train tracks was the sound of my life moving forward, finally. Later that day, in the Hawthorne residence, Adrian woke up to a ringing phone, Serena demanding to know where the blueprints for the new City Hall project were. He stumbled downstairs, hungover and grumpy, expecting to find coffee brewing and his briefcase packed. The house was silent and cold. Clara, he yelled, where's my coffee? We're late. No answer. He walked into the kitchen irritated. He saw the empty counter, the dirty plate, and the crisp white envelope placed beside it. He snatched it up, expecting it to be a request for a shopping trip or a reminder to buy Lily new shoes. He saw my name and my precise script. He flipped it over. He read the few brutal sentences. His first reaction wasn't fear or regret. It was pure, incredulous rage. He crumpled the paper in his fist. A bluff, he scoffed, throwing the wad of paper into the overflowing trash bin. She's tried this before. She can't survive without the credit card. She's got no skills, no fight. She'll be back by dinner begging. He looked at the unwashed dishes in the cold stove. He grabbed a bagel, ate it dry, and slammed the back door as he left for work. Lily wandered in an hour later. She was late for school, her hair unbrushed,
texting her friend about Serena's glamorous gala dress. She looked at the countertop. She saw the mess. She saw the overflowing trash bin. "Mom," she yelled up the stairs, exasperated. "This kitchen is disgusting. You're supposed to clean up." Silence. She checked the garage. Her mother's small hatchback was gone. "Whatever," Lily mumbled. "She probably just ran to the store for her stupid organic food. I need a ride to school." She called Adrian. He sent Serena to pick her up. Serena arrived 20 minutes later, looking flawless in sunglasses and a designer suit. "Hop in, sweetie. Don't worry about the drama. Your mother just needs some attention. She's like a cat. She'll rub up against you when she's hungry." Lily giggled, mollified by the ride in the expensive sports car. None of them noticed the fireproof box was missing from the basement. None of them noticed the 15 years of blueprints were gone. They only noticed the silence when they finally needed the things Clara had silently provided. They had dismissed her as background noise. They had no idea that when the background noise stops, it usually means the microphone has been cut.
Chapter 5. 2 weeks later, the silence in the Hawthorne residence was no longer peaceful. It was abrasive. Adrian's theory that I would return my dinner had proven spectacularly wrong. The house was disintegrating without my silent maintenance. The refrigerator, once a meticulously organized trove of fresh, organic meals, was now a wasteland of takeout containers and expired milk. Adrian's office, always immaculate, was a landscape of discarded energy drink cans and crumpled papers. He wasn't worried about me. He was worried about the mess. He called the bank, furious, only to be calmly informed by his relationship manager that Mrs. Hawthorne was legally entitled to her share of the community property. He couldn't freeze the account or claim I'd stolen anything. The divorce papers, still wadded in the trash, became a terrifying reality. "She's ruined me," he ranted to Serena over the phone. "This pitch is due Friday, and I can't find the original site survey documents. She always organized the final binders." Serena, who had officially moved into the master bedroom with an alarming amount of luggage, was proving to be a glamorous liability. "Darling, don't worry about documents," she said, leaning against the doorway in a silk robe, sipping a smoothie she'd ordered via app. "That's admin work. I'm a designer. I deal with vision." She was happy to play the role of the desirable muse, but was allergic to the actual invisible labor of running a life. Lily, meanwhile, was sinking. She missed the comfortable neglect of her old life. Before, Mom was always there, a silent presence who always knew where her lost gym shorts were, who proofread her essays at 1 a.m., and who made sure the house was warm and calm. Now, her father was stressed and perpetually drunk. Serena treated her like a roommate, barely acknowledging her existence. One evening, Lily came home distraught. She was failing her history class. "Dad, I have to write a huge paper on Byzantine architecture. I don't understand the domes and I don't know how to cite sources. Can you help me?" Adrian waved a dismissive hand. "I design skyscrapers, Lily. I don't dabble in dead empires. Ask Serena. She's supposed to be head designer." Lily walked down the hall and knocked tentatively on the master bedroom door. Serena was meticulously applying a facial mask while video chatting with a client. "Serena, can you please look at my essay outline? It's due tomorrow and I really need help." Serena pulled a face at the camera, then muted the audio. She looked at Lily with an expression of thinly veiled annoyance. "Sweetie, I'm building a brand here." Serena sighed, her voice perfectly pitched to convey martyrdom. "Go use Google. Your mother did all your school projects, didn't she? Maybe that's why you're so incapable." She unmuted the phone and resumed talking about the aesthetic flow of her latest Clara Less design. Lily walked back to her room, tears stinging her eyes. She sat on her bed realizing the cruel irony. She had openly scorned the woman who did everything for her, and now she was trapped with two people who believed that actual effort was beneath them.
The next morning, Adrian received a chilling email from the client overseeing the massive public library project, the account he desperately needed to land to save his firm. The email was polite, professional, and deadly. Dear Mr. Hawthorne, we appreciate your initial concept sketches, but we are moving forward with a blind submission from a third party. The design is revolutionary and addresses the core issues of structural integrity and public flow in a way we have never seen. We look forward to introducing you to the lead architect at the final presentation meeting next month. Adrian slammed his laptop shut. His genius had been beaten by an unknown entity. It has to be Serena's fault, he roared, storming into the kitchen. She's distracted me. I need Clara. She's the only one who can fix this. He snatched his phone, unblocked my number, and called. It rang once. Then, a cool, automated voice, "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." I hadn't just left. I had structurally dismantled myself from his life. Adrian, the great architect, was standing in our ruin, and he had no one left to blame but the silence.
Chapter 6. The next 3 months were a slow-motion catastrophe for Adrian Hawthorne Architecture. Adrian's firm lost the City Hall pitch. They lost 2 major residential contracts because the structural plans were amateurish and impractical, the kind of flaws I used to catch and correct while he slept. Clients began whispering. The genius had gone stale. The sparkle was gone. Serena tried to step up, but her designs were all flash and no substance. She used expensive, unstable materials and completely ignored building codes, assuming her vision would trump engineering reality. Adrian had to fire her after a catastrophic client meeting where she openly admitted she didn't know the difference between a load-bearing wall and a partition. Serena was furious. She didn't just leave. She took every expensive piece of furniture she had brought, maxed out Adrian's secondary credit card buying a going-away present for herself, and posted a vicious breakup message on social media. Lily's life was arguably worse. She had the flu, a brutal winter virus that left her weak and feverish. She lay in bed coughing, calling out for water. Adrian was too busy drinking scotch and yelling at his remaining junior staff to notice. When she tried to get his attention, he shoved a bottle of children's cough syrup at her and snapped, "Take this and go to sleep. I'm busy mourning my career." She lay in her darkened room, missing the cool, dry washcloth her mother used to place on her forehead, missing the soup and the quiet comfort. She realized that she, just like her father, had valued the glamour of the other woman over the quiet, unglamorous love of her mother. She never even got to the hospital, Lily thought, remembering the ambulance she had seen speeding away that night. She was sick, and we left her alone. One rainy afternoon, Lily found the crumpled divorce note in the trash. She smoothed it out, reading the cold, final lines. "Do not call, do not look for me." Lily felt a sickening wave of guilt and panic. Her father was failing. The firm was failing. The house was a mess. She was sick, alone, and failing school. The one constant in her life, the woman who had been her invisible lifeline, was gone. She started crying. Not the petulant tears of a teenager, but the deep, desperate sobs of a child who realizes they have alienated their only anchor. She tried to track me down. She called my one friend who politely stonewalled her. She checked my social media, which had been deactivated. I was a ghost. Meanwhile, Adrian finally hit rock bottom. He needed money. He needed validation. He needed a win, now. He suddenly remembered the massive library project meeting, the one he'd been invited to as a formality, the one he had already lost. He was supposed to meet the winning architect next week. A plan formed, desperate and ridiculous. I'll go to the meeting. I'll corner the winner.
I'll offer them a partnership, I'll buy their idea and claim I mentored them. It's my only chance. Adrian didn't need a partner. He needed a crutch. He needed a ghostwriter. He didn't realize he was preparing to meet the one person in the world who would never save him again. Chapter 7. 6 months later. The coastal town of Crestview was the antithesis of the steel and glass cityscape I had left behind. Here, everything was weathered, sun-bleached, and honest. The air smelled of salt and pine, not exhaust fumes and ambition. I was living in Evelyn Vance's guest cottage, a small clapboard structure nestled in the dunes. I was working again, really working, for the first time in over a decade. Evelyn, a sharp, white-haired woman who had been a pioneer in sustainable architecture, hadn't just given me shelter. She had given me a name. Under my maiden name, Clara Vance, I was her senior designer, anonymously submitting designs to blind competitions. My body was healing, both physically and emotionally. The headaches were gone, I ate well, I slept soundly, and I spent my evenings walking the beach, collecting smooth, colorful stones, my new treasures replacing the empty diamonds I'd left behind. I felt a quiet, simmering energy that had been dormant for years. I was no longer Adrian's ghost. I was my own architect, designing structures that were built to last, both literally and figuratively. The massive project Evelyn had mentioned was the Crestview Public Library, a complex, high-profile project funded by a secretive philanthropic trust requiring both innovative design and rigorous structural integrity. It was the kind of project Adrian would have killed for. The design I submitted was a synthesis of everything I loved: sustainable local materials, a massive light-filled central atrium, and a revolutionary cantilevered reading room that extended over the sea, making the reader feel like they were suspended over the water. It was the building I had been waiting to design my entire career. A week ago, I received the call from Evelyn. "Clara, you did it," she had said, her voice beaming. "You won the blind submission. Your concept blew every other proposal out of the water. They specifically cited the structural ingenuity." I felt a surge of professional pride that eclipsed any joy Adrian's borrowed awards had ever brought me. "Who else submitted?" I asked, purely out of professional curiosity. Evelyn chuckled darkly. "Let's just say there's a certain overconfident gentleman who designs shallow glass boxes. He's going to be there at the final presentation as the runner-up. He's expected to be furious." I smiled. The universe, it seems, was an excellent structural engineer. The final presentation was scheduled for Friday, in the city, back on Adrian's turf. I bought a new suit, a sharp, tailored number in deep navy. I wasn't dressing for him. I was dressing for the new foundation I had built for myself. As I rode the elevator up to the client's penthouse office, I took a deep breath. I was calm. I had no anger, no need for vengeance. The design spoke for itself. My presence was simply the final, irrefutable stamp of ownership. Chapter 8. The conference room was vast, overlooking the cityscape. Seated around the mahogany table were 3 members of the philanthropic trust, stern, serious people who held immense power. I stood by the window, adjusting my lapel, waiting for the meeting to begin. The door opened. Adrian walked in, followed by his 2 remaining, deeply stressed junior associates. He was wearing an expensive, slightly rumpled suit, and his face was drawn. He walked with a false swagger, assuming he had already intimidated everyone in the room. He didn't see me immediately. He was focused on shaking hands with the clients, talking loudly about his global vision. "Thank you all for joining us," the head of the trust, a woman named Miss Chen, announced. "Mr. Hawthorne, we appreciate you taking the time. Now, let me introduce the architect who submitted the winning design."
Adrian turned to face the window, his expression dismissive, ready to size up his pathetic competition. He saw me. His face went from arrogant dismissal to utter, slack-jawed shock. His skin paled to the color of the interior plaster. I did not speak. I did not acknowledge the past. I simply held his gaze, my expression cool and entirely professional. Miss Chen walked toward me, beaming. "Everyone, meet Clara Vance, the architect of the Crestview Public Library." Adrian stumbled back a step. "Clara, what? Vance? No, that's impossible. You're a housewife. You're not registered." "I am a retired registered architect, Mr. Hawthorne," I corrected him smoothly, walking toward the table. I nodded to the clients. "Thank you, Miss Chen. Shall we begin the presentation?" Adrian found his voice, a strangled, desperate rasp. "Wait, this is ridiculous. She's my estranged wife. She copied my concepts. She stole them from my files." I let him flounder for exactly 10 seconds, allowing the clients to witness his panic and unprofessionalism. Then I stopped the presentation with a raised hand. "Mr. Hawthorne, I anticipated this," I said, my voice calm, professional, and entirely detached. "If you would care to look at the first slide." The screen behind me flashed, not to my library design, but to the photo of the Sketchbook 4 cover. "Clients, this is a high-resolution photograph of the preliminary sketch for Mr. Hawthorne's Golden Compass award-winning building. Note the date stamp on the photograph, taken 7 years ago. Now please look at the signature on the rendering in the bottom corner." The camera zoomed in on the small, precise signature. C. Vance. I designed that tower, and the atrium towers, and the museum annex. I did all the structural work for which Mr. Hawthorne has collected awards. I was the silent foundation of his entire career. Adrian tried to lunge forward, his composure utterly shattered. "You're lying. That's fabrication. I'll sue you." Miss Chen slammed her hand on the table. "Mr. Hawthorne, control yourself. This is a business meeting." I looked at Miss Chen. "Miss Chen, I can provide the physical, dated sketchbooks, sealed and notarized within the hour. The question for the trust is not who drew the plans, but who has the structural genius and reliability to execute this project. I was building his career while he was failing to answer a life or death emergency call from the hospital. I chose to leave his firm because I choose reliability over vanity." The clients looked at each other. They didn't need any more evidence. They had seen the man collapse under pressure. "Mr. Hawthorne," Miss Chen said coldly, standing up, "our trust requires absolute integrity. Given the strong evidence of substantial misrepresentation of your past work and your conduct today, your firm is hereby banned from bidding on any future trust projects. Your proposal is immediately voided. Security will see you out." Adrian didn't look at me with hate. He looked at me with the absolute, devastating shock of a man who realized his entire kingdom had just been dismantled by the person he had treated like a doormat. He had lost everything, not in a fight, but in a quiet, professional execution. I watched him go, led away by security. For the first time since the surgery, I felt a genuine, clear sense of peace. The debt was paid.
Chapter 9. A week later. The media coverage was brutal, quiet, and definitive. There were no screaming headlines, just technical articles discussing structural fraud and the unmasking of the ghost architect. Adrian Hawthorne architecture was finished. Adrian was a hermit, drunk, and disgraced. Serena, true to form, had already publicly distanced herself from the emotionally unstable former colleague, cementing his fall. The only person left in the ruins was Lily. One evening, I heard a frantic knock on the door of the small Crestview cottage. It wasn't Evelyn. It wasn't a client. I opened the door to find Lily standing on my doorstep. She looked terrible, pale, thin, and wearing the same tired, dirty clothes she must have worn for days. "Mom," she whispered, her voice breaking into a ragged sob. "Mom, please, let me in. I ran away. Dad, he won't stop drinking. He won't talk. The house is awful. I don't know what to do." She stepped forward, ready to collapse into my arms the way a child does when they finally come home. I didn't move. I stood in the doorway, blocking her entrance, arms crossed. This was the hardest test of my resolve. This was the moment I had to choose between the mother I used to be and the woman I needed to become. "Lily," I said, calm, though my heart was hammering. "You are 16 years old. You are not a toddler." Her face crumpled. "What? Mom, I'm sick. I have nowhere to go." "You have a father. He is legally responsible for you. You also have a phone and 2 functioning legs. You chose to ignore me when I was dying on the kitchen floor. You laughed at me when I was tired and asked you to stand still. You watched your father treat me like a piece of garbage and never intervened." The coldness in my voice terrified her. She hadn't expected the rage. She had expected the rescue. I know I was awful. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I love you. Please, I'll do anything. I'll clean, I'll cook, I'll..." "No, Lily," I cut her off. "You won't do anything because you don't believe your mother is worth doing anything for. You came here because your life became inconvenient, not because you had an epiphany about me." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a clean, crisp $20 bill. I pressed it into her hand. "Take this. There's a clean, safe motel down the street. Call your grandmother, my mother. She will pick you up and take you home to your father. If you truly regret your actions, you will go back and take responsibility for your own life and for his. That is what a grown woman does." I saw the raw, painful realization in her eyes. You're not coming back, she whispered, finally understanding. No, I confirmed. I will not set myself on fire to keep your father warm. And I will not tolerate disrespect from my own daughter. When you are ready to be a person of value, not just a person who needs value, you can call me. I will visit, but I will not live with you ever again. I closed the door gently. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood, tears finally spilling down my cheeks, not for my own pain, but for the hard, necessary lesson I had just taught my child. The lesson that some things, once broken, are not meant to be fixed. Epilogue.
1 year later. The Crestview Public Library opened to critical acclaim. It was called a masterpiece of human-centric design, winning every major architectural award. The library was my magnum opus, my final, triumphant signature. I was now a co-founder of Evelyn's newly renamed firm, Vance & Vance, a name I had earned with my own 2 hands. I was back in the city for a project consultation, a small but prestigious commission to redesign a public park. I sat at an outdoor cafe on the corner of the plaza I was redesigning, drinking a perfect espresso, reviewing my blueprints. I wore sunglasses, enjoying the anonymity of my success. I looked up and saw him, Adrian. He was sitting on a public bench across the street. He was thinner, his clothes wrinkled, and he looked utterly defeated. He was reading a copy of the Journal of Architecture,
the issue featuring my library on the cover. He was looking at my photo on the inside flap. He glanced up, and his eyes met mine through my sunglasses. For a moment, he froze. His eyes widened, hope, shame, and desperation warring in his expression. He stood up, clutching the magazine. He started to cross the street toward me. I did not flinch. I did not glare. I did not turn away in anger. I simply checked my watch, gathered my blueprints, and stood up. I walked the other way, toward the park entrance, moving with the steady, measured pace of a woman who had a schedule and important work to do. I heard him call my name, a weak, strangled sound carried away by the city traffic. "Clara!" I didn't turn back. I walked away without accelerating my pace, without a flicker of emotion, disappearing into the crowd of business people and tourists. He stood there, halfway across the street, knowing that the woman he had treated like an invisible maid was now the architect of his city and the one person who could have saved him. He waited for her to turn around, to scream, to show any emotion at all. But the opposite of love isn't hate, it is indifference. And for the first time in his life, Adrian was utterly, completely insignificant.